Hi, I'm Christina. Welcome to the Revolver Fan First podcast, where we go deep with artists on their history as a fan. Today we have a very special guest, Be Real of Cypress Hill.
Hello.
Welcome. So first question we always ask is, who was the first artist you put on a pedestal?
Ooh, that's a good question. I was exposed to a lot of different music at an early age. By my mother and sometimes my father. So I would say probably the Beatles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Oh,
Middle?
that I could remember probably from the time I was like maybe 6 or 7. My mother would play the Beatles and a lot of other stuff because she was from Cuba. So I heard a lot of Latin-based music, salsa, merengue, samba, and all that. And from my father's side, 50s doo-wop and some Mexican rancheras and stuff like that. Very diverse styles of music there. But my mother, loved the Beatles. So I got a lot of that early on. And I like their music. I mean, to this day, I'm still a big Beatles fan. So that they were probably the first I put on a pedestal at a young age.
Yeah. What's your favorite Beatles tune?
There's so many because they did something completely different on every goddamn album. But I don't know. I think maybe some of the last sessions, like the Long and Winding Road, that's a pretty deep cut right there.
Awesome. Yay. Well, that's interesting because you both write quite capital S songs. So, and that's an important thing to have ingested early. Who was the first artist you saw yourself in?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay, tell me this. Okay, we've got to talk about heavy metal because you guys are the heavy metal people's choice of hip hop groups. You know this. You know that there is an entire subculture around the world of metalheads who love Cypress Hill. So tell us about your history with heavy metal.
Oh, man. Well, again, I grew up around a lot of different stuff, but what I was listening to before I got into hip hop was pretty much heavy metal. And I was a big Ozzy Osbourne fan. I got put on to his solo stuff first, and then, I went and started listening to Black Sabbath and all that stuff. So then, I've become a Black Sabbath fan, and because to me, that is some of the best, shit ever made, along with Zeppelin and many others. But for some reason, Ozzy was like, I don't know, man. I just always loved him and his energy and his daringness to do different shit and be different than most other frontmen of his time. Yeah. And his tone and his delivery and the type of dark shit he wrote, it was all in line with me and who I was. So I saw a lot of myself there. But he's completely unique, and I've always been a huge fan, and I've had chances to meet him and have brief conversations with him. Cool dude, love the Osbourne family. They're like cool people.
Yeah, awesome. That's a wonderful thing. Well, it's no one really sounds like Ozzy Osbourne, and no one really sounds like you. It's kind of
that is true.
Like, it really is. Like, they're just like, you can't do that. And I was re-listening to your last album and just like listening to it and like going through all of your stuff. And there's this, it's so ominous. You've got so much darkness in Cypress Hill, which is kind of beautiful. And maybe that goes back to that, like it's always, it's like filmic almost. Like, is that a conscious thing you guys do, or?
Yeah, I think that's second nature. We've always, as a group collectively, like the heavier, ominous type of sound, be it like, the thing is about us is that, we all, before we met each other, we were listening to all this type of music before we met each other. And when we all connected, Muggs, Sen, and myself, and there was a process of how that happened. But Sendog was always listening to metal and funk and reggae and punk rock, and I listened to the same shit, and so did Muggs. We all grew up sort of, listening to the same stuff. It just, we had it all in common. So when it came to putting our music together, at the time when we were putting our first album together, you see a lot of album covers where all the hip hop and rap heads, they were like all on the cover. You see their faces and they're shining bright. And because we were like metal heads doing hip hop pretty much, we wanted to do what the metalheads did. They very obscure album covers. Rarely did you see their faces. Now and then you saw their faces, but sometimes they blended them in such a ways where you're like, you didn't even know they were the fucking band. And so we wanted to be obscure like that with our imagery, and our music was just dark because the way that we grew up and experienced life. That's sort of what we knew. And it just became like, it became a sound for us, and it became a thing. I mean, we do brighter songs. We are capable of that, but the darkness tends to attach to us more than anything, I guess.
Yeah, and people connect with that. Like, it's it's something that's sort of, it's soul restoring to have great.
Yeah, I agree, because look, our Temple of Boom album is one of our fan favorites. Like, there's the first album, and of course Black Sunday, because that's the biggest one in terms of the lot. But we get a lot of people talking about Temples of Boom because that was one of our darkest albums. It was gritty, grimy, touches of psychedelic feel there, and very gloomy. But people come to us and they be like, hey man, that album helped me through some tough times. And truth be told, it helped me through some tough times, because we were all going through crazy shit, and we were very mad at the world. And I think that's why that album was so fucking dark. And I love it. I was just listening to it the other day, and I thought, man, now I kind of see why like some folks pick this as their favorite Cypress album. Muggs was on a different level in terms of the beats that he was making for the band. And I think that the way that him and I just sort of snapped in, because him and I worked on that album a lot. And Sen worked on it, in touches, because he was sort of on his way out at that time. So he wasn't like in the studio as much. So me and Muggs pretty much clicked in on that one, and we were very angry at everything. So that's what came out.
Well, okay, I have to ask, because it's like, it's been 4 years since your last album. You've only had, 12 years before that.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty exciting to hear some new stuff from you. And like, how are you feeling about the world? Like, how is, I feel like there could be darkness here. I feel like there could be darkness. just looking at the way, the world's rolled out.
Our last album was very, very dark and psychedelic. It was almost like an extension of the Temple of Boom, but just a little bit darker. Muggs went in on the music there. On this one, we collaborated with a producer named Black Milk, based out of Detroit, who is here now, and he sort of knows the Cypress vibe. He had been a fan and all that stuff, and so he gets what Cypress Hill is. So he gave us his version of a boom bap dark Cypress Hill type of record. We rarely do happy songs. It's not.
You're straight up metalheads, man. But you make people happy.
It's not in our repertoire to. I mean, we've done it. And it's fun to do it because we're well-rounded like that. We can do anything. We like the way we look at ourselves as artists, and the fact that we've been able to do this for 30 years now, is that we can snap into any genre that you put us in. So if it's EDM, we can do it. If it's fucking metal, we can do it. If it's goddamn classical music, we could pretty much do it.
Really?
But yeah, yes, definitely. I listen to classical music on my off time. People don't know that, but I do. But we pride ourselves in to be able to snap it in any situation. So if it's a bright song, we know that we could do it. But realistically, when we work with Muggs, you know, he traditionally likes to do the dark songs.
Yeah.
He rarely likes to do the bright, colorful, upbeat, cheerful shit, you know, because realistically for us, that wasn't a reality for a long time, you know. Even as we were having success in selling records and becoming this phenomenon, we were still going through crazy shit in our personal lives. So, you know, we were happy that we were, you know, having this success, but we were very upset with everything else around it. It was, and that sort of drives your, it sort of drives your creativity. You know, you use it as fuel and shit like that. And when you're mad at the world, you can make some pretty goddamn good songs.
Yes, I agree.
I tend to think when you're too happy, it's less about struggle. And usually, you know, most artists live in a struggle, and that's when they write their best songs.
Totally.
So if you're too happy and too complacent and you know, I think you lose an edge there.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you know, for us, we've never been complacent. We've never been happy with anything. It's been like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah. You've got like appetite. You've got the appetite, but Black Sunday is the appetite for destruction. It's your appetite for destruction. Like it's just, it's insane, dude. You can still listen to that end to end, and it's just nothing else sounds like it. Like, you know, and you've made a bunch of records like that. But I mean, that's a part of a lot of our youth. We grew up with that stuff, and
those first three albums were definitely pivotal for us and for the fans listening to us, because we were doing something really different there than what other hip hop groups were doing. See, well, I think what people tend to not see is that as we were getting popular, we were doing darker songs as opposed to getting popular and trying to recreate what is getting us this popularity and this success in this radio play and stuff like that. We're like, oh, we're going darker. What are you talking about? And you know, and that was you know, the challenge with Sony. Like, how do we sell this group? Because they don't want to get lighter, they want to keep getting dark.
What were those meetings like?
Hey, you got to give us something, guys. What the hell? You know, the fuck's going on? Are you guys gonna keep making this dark shit, or are you gonna give us something? Like, hey, it is what it is. I mean, that's because that's the way we worked. We worked very much upon a vibe, right? And it was never, you know, even after Kill a Man, you know, starts taking off, we never tried to recreate Kill a Man. We were just sort of doing what we were doing, and whatever happened. And if they found a song that they think they could, you know, get down with and push as a single, great. But we had never worked to get a single, and that was always like the conversation in any meeting with Sony. So, single, guys, what are we talking about here? And we're like, hey, well, if we get it, we get it. If we don't, the album is fucking awesome, because that's where the focus was, is making the best album possible, cohesive, and giving them like a ride. You know, like a roller coaster ride and stuff like that. And so, that was always the conversation. Like, you know, so when can, you know, like, what type of singles are we dealing with here? And Muggs, for his, you know, to his credit, he just never wanted to like replicate any of our successes. He wanted to go darker, because I think he felt that the more radio play that we were getting and the more MTV play we were getting, that at the point we were at, it might have played us out. It might have been too much, and then you sort of die out with you know, if you're not becoming a pop star, the end road is that shit starts dying down, and your fans sort of go other places because they feel like you lost this edge and shit like that. So with Muggs, it was like, no, we ain't losing no edges, and I'm not gonna do what everyone else does and work to the success. I'm going to make it darker and make it and just keep giving this experience. And it worked. Hey, people love that we were very punk rock in the sense that we were like, fuck the radio, we don't need it, and we've never needed it, and we live without it. We're one of the groups that have had the success that we've had without tremendous radio support. So we're always like, well, fuck radio, we don't need it, so why try to make music for it?
Totally. And your longevity is the proof in the pudding, and that's the hardest thing to do, right? Like, everyone can have like a boo, but what comes up must go down, and you guys have maintained this thing. When did you start feeling like the Cypress Hill fan base was coalescing? Like,
I would say, we weren't really noticing at the time. We're just sort of living it. But like, if in recollection, it was probably during the times that we were doing the Smoky Grooves tours, like right after Lollapalooza. I think Lollapalooza was one of the most effective plays that we had in our career, because I believe that was essential. That play was essential, because beforehand we were doing a bunch of hip hop shows and we were gaining momentum there. But as far as the club circuit, we did everything we could do, and we were packing shows, selling them out, and we had to take another step, because what we were doing was kind of different in the energy that we were creating for a hip hop group. Other than the Beastie Boys, no one else was creating this kind of energy, right? So, we get asked to go do Lollapalooza, and we were asked to do the side stage, and we were like looking at each other like, what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, look, we come from the metal and punk rock fan base frame of mind. So in reality, this shouldn't be nothing to us, but we know that we've been living nothing but hip hop up until that point. So we were all fucking boggled, like, why are we here? And we go do the first show, and I think it was in Chicago, and we do the first show, and when we're setting up, there's absolutely no one at the side stage. We're like, who are we gonna fucking play for? There's nobody fucking here. And they're like, well, it's the gig, let's just do it. If no one comes, we'll give it a couple shows. If not, we'll just jump off the tour. And I remember when we started playing the intro, just the intro, no one fucking knew the music to the intro. It was just a swarm of people that boom collected on that side stage out of nowhere. And when we start going into the songs, they're going nuts. They're mosh, they're stage diving, they're crowd surfing, they're doing all the craziness, and we hadn't seen that before in any hip hop show. So now Sen and I are jumping out in the crowd, and now it's become a thing. So we make a deep impression on those punk rock and metal, alternative and metalhead kids in that side stage action, right? And then eventually we start gaining momentum after that tour, as such that they ask us to do the big stage. So then we do the big stage, and we notice that we are stealing the show at a lot of these places with Hole and Sonic Youth on the venue. We were fucking stealing a lot of those shows. I would say 90% of them, we stole those fucking shows. So after that comes Smoking Grooves, and Smoking Grooves, we decide the way that people do meet and greets now, we were doing them at Smoking Grooves. We asked the House of Blues, who was the owner of that of the tour. They were like the owners of this tour. We asked them specifically, can we have our own booth aside from the merch booth, that we can sit there and do autograph signings with people, and maybe promote some of the other shit we got going on aside from the merch. And they allowed us to do that. So you know, we'd go
Wow.
out there before our set and sometimes after, and we started noticing like hundreds of people lining up to get these autographs and these pictures, you know, while other groups are playing. And we kind of felt bad for that, because we were taking people out of the venue or off from the stage, away from the stage. But yeah, we would have to sign like hundreds, and we did not stop signing until everybody was fucking signed, and they'd come in droves. And that's when, you know, like looking back, I realized that that's when we were really cultivating our fan base, because really no one else was doing that. They weren't going out in the crowd doing meet and greets like that. And outside of just the meet and greets, we'd go out and walk about in the crowd after the show, and sometimes before, without security or any of that. And people love that shit, because no other artists were coming out and hanging with them and like smoking out or having a conversation. Everybody was stuck backstage, just like, you know, not wanting to engage. And we were all about engaging, you know? So I think it was back then in that time where it really started to cultivate. Well,
speaking of engaging with the fans, like I heard a story from a friend of mine who is from Canberra. And she said that when you guys invited her and a bunch of other people back to your hotel room, and you gave everyone in the room a signed Cypress Hill bong, and it just became like this artifact. And I thought, that's just a beautiful thing you guys do. You go out and you give these like young stoners something that they can put in a cabinet or smoke out of every day. You know, you're still giving back.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's everything, you know. And it all started with an interaction I had with Chuck D from Public Enemy. You know, we were all big Public Enemy fans, as it's well stated throughout our career. I met him at this club before we were anything. We were just doing demos at this point, and I saw him low key. He didn't have his hat on. He was like trying to be, you know, very low key. And I was like, yo, Chuck D, we fucking love you on our block, man. You know, we just fucking love you. Keep doing what you're doing. We're trying to do the same thing. Hopefully one day we're there with you guys. And he said, hey man, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Much love. And you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. And maybe one day you will be up there. You know what I mean? And I, you know, like living in LA, we don't approach celebrities because we know that they could be assholes. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, as kids, we very much knew, and as young men, we don't approach any celebrity, you know, just based off of, if you say something crazy to us, like, hey, fuck off, I'm not signing shit, we might beat you the fuck up.
I thought it was just like you didn't want to be disappointed. It's like, no, we're gonna waste you. Like,
no, fuck. We'll be disappointed for the heartbeat, but then we're gonna beat him up for being disrespectful, you know. So
LA straight repping.
Yeah, so we never really approached people that we looked up to for that problem. You know, like they say, don't meet your heroes, right?
Because we were gonna beat them up. Did you ever beat anyone up?
I didn't have to, fortunately, but well, not in that circumstance. No, yeah. I've had plenty of fights, but like,
you've
been not in that circumstance. Say what?
But did you really only ever get shot once?
I've been shot at many times, but I got shot once. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like, and you know, in terms of like survival, and because I wanted to ask you, because like your dad got shot 12 times and survived. You got shot in the side with hollow point bullets at like 17 and you survived. Do you feel like there's something keeping you around? Do you feel like there's something that wants you to keep producing music and art?
God is good.
Yeah.
Whether God is a man or a woman or both, God is good. He blessed me with having fucking 9 lives, I guess. You know what I mean? And being able to turn it around, because truly, I mean, where I come from and where I started, sometimes I, you know, like I trip off this sometimes in my own time. Like, what did I do to be worthy of the blessing that I got here? And the fact that it's based off of this dark style music, you know what I mean? Like unfiltered, because to me, I never wanted to be preached to about shit, right? You know, like there's ways that you can learn things from people without them preaching to you or trying to shove this information down your throat. But some of us like to learn the hard way, unfortunately. and you learn those lessons. So for me, you know, like you know, we live through a lot of darkness, but I always look at it like I am the light in the dark.
Yeah.
Follow me.
Were you
Follow me.
like leaving that life and stuff? Like, was that hard? What's the biggest misconception about like life in sort of the gang environment? Like what, because I'm sure none of us really know what the actual experience is of being in that sort of brotherhood environment and what it means. Like what do people get wrong about the world you came from?
Well, you know, I don't know if there's much to get wrong, because realistically it is very it's a dangerous lifestyle. It's treacherous, you know. You got a handful of people you can trust, and you know, there's others that are around you that you're supposed to trust but you can't. And it's always danger around the corner, and the 3 points of it are death, imprisonment, or you know, you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, or God forbid, you know, you cause the death of one of your family members because they might be coming to get you there. I mean, there's a lot. And many gangbangers come from broken homes. We know this. Drug addicted families, and so they look for other families, and the family on the street is the one that shows the most support sometimes. And unfortunately, it's not really the support that one needs to thrive in society and all that shit. But like, if you're trying to survive in a place it's, you know, there's a lot of tension there, because maybe it's, you live in a gang infested area, or you know, a place where drugs are sold by rival gangs or rival drug dealers, and you know, the violence happens, and you know, some of these guys seek refuge in the brotherhood of a gang, you know, because what, you know, it is true, rolling together you're much stronger. So you know, these 5 guys make a fist.
Yeah, well, it's like together, the band,
right?
Well, you kind of you switch brotherhoods. You switch the music.
I did.
You switch brotherhoods. Like, yeah, like, was that hard? Can you just walk away? Like, how does that work?
Well, you know, it's not everybody could walk away. I think, you know, it depends how deep you are, you know, and it depends on your intention too. You know, if your intention is to turn your life around and they feel like they could trust you, that you're not going to flip on them and give them up in any sort of way that would compromise them. Yeah, that you could do what the hell you want, because realistically, you know, some spend a lifetime in gangs, and others have the realization like, fuck, I need to, like, I have a family now, I got to deal with that. I cannot be out here fucking around. I got to feed my family. And for me, the realization was this, you know, was that I realized that I was good at something, which was writing. And my good friends in Sendog and Muggs and Sen's brother Mello, you know, had enough confidence in me and my writing to sort of take a chance and come pull me out of the neighborhood and say, hey, listen, can you come to the studio with us and help us with this shit? We want to see if you'd be interested in doing that. And at first I wasn't. I was totally indoctrinated, and I didn't want no part of anything but the gang lifestyle. I felt like if I had been gone, I wasn't doing my duty as one of the soldiers.
You're right.
You know what I mean? So it was hard to disconnect at first, but once I had a taste of the studio life, and then seeing all these other artists come to the studio that you hear about and you hear on the radio, and oh shit, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
I started wanting to spend more time, you know, in the studio than on the street when that happened. And I made my choice. And fortunately, my circle of guys within our clique, they understood and they had my back. And you know, they were like, hey man, go get it.
Yeah. Do they come to your shows now? You guys?
Yeah, some of them do. Yeah, some of them do for sure.
How did you start writing? Like, was there a catalyst event? Did something make you need to put like words down on paper, or have you just always written kind of?
You know, I started with
dude. Like, yeah, you're one of the best. Like, true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I started with poetry, really, and I don't know how that started. I think the first one I wrote it on a desk at school, and I got in trouble for it. Uh,
Like actually carved it into the desk or whatever, or wrote it with pen.
Wrote it in pencil,
Yeah.
you know, that thick fucking, you know, like there was no way not to see it. And I don't know why I did that, because I knew I was going to get in trouble for it. But, you know, again, we didn't really, we looked at trouble in the eye and scoffed at it.
Yeah. Even at that age, not playing. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Not playing.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like the first I guess the earliest was maybe, I guess, the 6th or 7th grade that I started scribbling shit on desks and stuff like that. Yep. When I met Mello, man, which is Sendog's younger brother, we were both into breakdancing, and we had mutual friends in this one breakdancing crew. And so we connected there. And so we were very much into the b-boy shit. But he was sort of transitioning into, you know, being an MC. And, you know, I was very curious about that. And he knew I wrote poems. So he was like, look, this is how you make a poem into a rap. You know, this is how you get it on beat. And he sort of showed me that. And that's when I started writing raps. I didn't know how to write songs yet. I was just writing raps and shit like that after the poetry. But yeah, he sort of helped me transition from the poems into writing raps.
That's sick.
And yeah, and so yeah, I was in junior high at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, who knew? Because I, like, realistically, there was 2 things. You know, they always ask you as a kid, what is it that you want to be when you grow up? So at the earliest, I always said Air Force, right? I want to fucking be a pilot. I want to fly high.
Yeah, well, you did fly high. Let's be real. You've definitely flown high.
I flew high in a different way. Yes.
I'm dressed like Wade, by the way. I'm dressed like Wade. I dress like Wade to, you know, embrace it. Carry on.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I love it. And the other thing, it was a journalist, right? That, you know, the other thing would be like, I would answer, well, you know, if not the Air Force, maybe journalism. And you know, my grades at school and my attendance in school, and because I hung out with bad kids, and I was a pretty fucking bad kid myself, you know, I was never able to, you know, get the grades that I would need to, you know, get to either of those places properly. But you know, when I look at it now, it's like I did hit both of them. Like you said, I fly higher than most.
Yeah, dog.
and what I've been doing for the last 30 years in writing these songs is sort of journalism. It's like telling you, and telling you the experiences that we have in these certain communities, societies, and environments and shit like that. So I very much got pretty close to what my original, you know, thing was. But I didn't look at it that way for a very long time. I just didn't even bother thinking about that. Like, you know, but yeah, that I ended up doing in a roundabout way what I wanted to do.
Well, telling stories, like, it's the thing that makes us human. It's the thing that separates us from the animals, being able to communicate. I mean, maybe they are telling each other's stories, but like committed to paper and, you know, songs, they, you know, who are we to judge what animals are doing? Right. But the storytelling, it's such a huge part of what you do. What I'm so curious to hear what you have to say about the last few years, because it's the strangest ass time that I think. Oh yeah. Like, it's got to be for all of our lifetimes. This has been a strange ass time. How did you find it, and how have you kind of spoken about it? I know it's like, yeah.
Well, you know, look, life gives you so much to write about if you pay attention to it. And fuck, you know, you'd have to be blind and deaf to not know what's happening in today's world. You know what I mean?
World War III, dude. World War III today. Like,
world. Yeah. And who, you know, who would have thought? It's crazy. With all the shit that had been happening in the last 2 years, it's the last thing anybody fucking thought was going to happen, except for the people who knew, right? Because there's always the people who know. And but I tell you, it, you know, and within the last, you know, from the last album to now, so much has happened that you know, it gives you backdrop because you live life and you experience things, and that's always what we've always talked about. Sure, there's a few songs there that you do the hip hop shit where it's not really about anything. It's you're bragging about how dope you are and all that shit. But at the heart of it, when you're rocking substance type of songs, you know, these type of things come out because you sort of feel like you have to say something, but you don't want to be shoving it down people's throats. You want to do it in a way where it connects. And you know, that's always the gamble. Like, how do you do this effectively and it connect with people properly? Yeah. And you know, you just got to go with your vibe. So, you know, I've always went by what tracks say to me. When I get a track from Muggs or a track from, let's say, Black Milk or whoever I happen to be working with, it's whatever the track says to me. And if the track says to me social commentary, like the vibe of it,
yeah,
that's where I go. If the vibe is like, you know, that's how songs speak to me. That's how I base my writing. Like, what does this beat say to me? Yeah. What does it need me to say on it?
Dude, that's amazing. So you got a whole dialogue. You got a whole dialogue with that. Wow. What obviously Prophets of Rage you do with Chuck D, Public Enemy, and you know almost the entire band Rage Against the Machine. What was your experience of, because you know you guys from LA, you came up at a similar time. Were you aware of each other, and what did you think of kind of being out about the kind of stuff they spoke about?
Oh, I mean, we were all fans of each other. Like that was unspoken. I mean, you know, we love Rage Against the Machine, we love Public Enemy, and it's a whole circle of love in terms of the three bands and us influencing each other, you know, because we've all had some sort of influence on each other in some roundabout way. And we've all been like really good friends for a long time. And when this project came about, you know, we thought it looked great on paper, but what is it really like when we get to this? And it turned into a real thing, you know, in a short time, because we had some good chemistry and everybody was pro and everybody liked each other. You know, that's very important.
You're already there. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, so for me, it was surreal because here I am with my idol, Chuck D, and I'm getting to, you know, write songs with him, record with him, and ultimately perform these fucking songs with him, you know, on tour and on stage, and seeing that. And then, you know, with, you know, the other guys, it was great rocking with them. It was fun. You know, we had always talked about doing something, and this was it. You know, when Rage first broke up, I had a conversation with them early on, but you know, they went with Chris and they created some classic music there and did audio. Yeah.
Whoa, that's wild. That's like an alternate version of reality. Where Audioslave, Chris Cornell. And whoa, you were talking to them. That's wild, dude.
Yeah, I was talking to them before that. And truth be told, I was not ready then. Yeah. You know what I mean? I could learn Zach's songs and do them and shit like that. I mean, because we did that. You saw that with Chuck and I when we flipped them back and forth. That wasn't the problem. It was like, could I be what they needed to, you know, do what they did with Audioslave? And at that time, I don't think I was ready. So, you know, I was sort of glad that it didn't happen then, because, you know, all the stuff that I had done after that sort of prepared me for Prophets of Rage later, you know what I mean? And it was a fun time. I mean, the shows were incredibly fucking dope, and you know, being able to rock with those guys for the 3 to 4 years that we were able to do it and create some really great songs that you know, we were taking chances on. We didn't know if people were going to react to them. I mean, we're playing Cypress Hill music, Public Enemy music, and Rage Against the Machine music. How is our music as a band going to hold up with any of this shit? And fortunately, we were able to, you know, put down some really fucking good songs that held up next to those catalogs and stuff like that. So it was great. It, you know, like it ended, and it ended abruptly.
Yeah.
But
what was the story there?
The story there was Rage Against the Machine got back together.
Oh yeah, that old chestnut.
And so, you know, I think, you know, I can't speak for any of them, but I can only speak for myself. I you know, like, you can't have those two bands functioning at the same time, because realistically we're birthed out of Rage Against the Machine. So, you know, we felt like, we'll, you know, Chuck, myself, and Lord, we'll play the back. And do what we said we were going to do had Zach decided to come back, which was step back and let them do what everybody wants them to do, which is Rage Against the Machine, come kill it. I think we proved that their music stood the test of time and was relevant in the time that we were playing their music with Prophets of Rage, you know, like, because they were getting up to these songs with me and Chuck doing it. Imagine if Mr. De La Rocha comes out of, you know, wherever the hell he's at and just starts rocking it. People are going to go ape shit crazy. So it made sense.
Yeah.
For them to pull it back together.
You guys are humble, like, you know, like, you know, I'm just saying, just side note. Which Public Enemy song do you wish you wrote?
Ooh, fuck, that's a good question, because there's so many. Night of the Living Bassheads is a fucking jam, and let's see what else. Don't Believe the Hype is dope,
dude.
But I'm gonna go with Night of the Living Bassheads. That's always been one of my favorite Public Enemy songs.
You know what's really funny, when you're talking about the logo and stuff, like, I listened to a podcast with Chuck talking about what they were doing when they were developing the Public Enemy logo, and they were like, well, we're looking at bands like Anthrax and all these guys in the New York area, they're playing to 3,000 people a weekend, and they're like, oh, I wish we had that kind of heat, like, and looked at the same way you guys did, looked at a lot of these heavy metal iconography and took that on board. And I thought that was really interesting, that that's an interesting thing you guys share. Like,
Chuck is a student. He's a student of the game, and he's also an art student. So, like, you know, he had different perspective. Like, he's very fucking talented in the art world. He's got a photographic memory. He could see something and then recreate it.
Wow.
Like, immediately. Like, we would be doing our rehearsals, he'd be drawing us there, sketching us out, doing our rehearsals.
Wild.
We're doing sound checks, he's doing it there. We're backstage hanging out. Like, he's fucking amazing. So, you know, when I learned that he was crafting like the logos and a lot of the artwork for Public Enemy, it didn't surprise me, because he's just that fucking good.
Yeah.
And you know, again, they were one of our biggest influences. You know, we saw a lot of what they were doing, and we were like, okay, we have to be as good as these guys.
Set the agenda, set the bar.
Right. For us, they were the bar.
Yeah, actually, on that note, like, talking about being metalheads and you know, and I think the reason why you do connect in that broad way is because metalheads and rockheads and stuff, they know you are one of them, and they can feel it, and you can't lie to them. Like, it's, you know, it's why it cuts through. But what made you fall in love with hip hop?
Run DMC.
Really?
Yes, Run DMC, because we had a station here in Los Angeles that was the only station that was playing hip hop at the time, and they were an AM station. They were a little AM station called 1580 KDAY.
Yeah.
And they would play hip hop and R&B, but they would really drive the hip hop on Fridays on a mix show. Yep. But you would hear hip hop through the week, which no FM station was doing that. Like, not one hip hop song, not a mix show, not anything. So within the rotation slots of K-Day comes a Run DMC song. And I think it was Big Beat or something like that, or maybe It's Like That. It was one of them first. And I thought that was so fucking dope. I was like, dude, what the fuck is this? And then they come out with Kings of Rock and Rock Box.
Yeah, dude.
which they had like hardcore guitars and live drums and that shit. And here they are rapping over this hardcore guitar riff and shit. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? and that was sort of my the beginning of my love for hip hop right there. And it sort of took me away from everything I was listening to previously. Like I stopped listening to metal. I stopped listening to punk. I stopped listening to anything that wasn't hip hop at that time.
You fell in love. You got married to hip hop. You know, you were seeing a bunch of these guys casually, and you're like, you know what? No, this is my wife. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And it was all Run DMC's doing. You know, I got baptized into hip hop by Run DMC.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. I'm glad it happened. It's good to have you one of the anointed ones.
So and think about it, and think about it. Like, you know, no one gives them enough credit in this, but they were the first to collaborate with the rock shit, and then eventually, you know, doing the collabo with Aerosmith. We get credited with putting the hybrid together. What we were one of the people credited, or one of the groups credited with it, in terms of doing hip hop and rock and making it a fusion. But I mean, you know, they did it before us.
Yeah,
Run DMC, you know.
Good shouting them out. Well, I love, like, on your first album, like the song Pigs, the first fucking sound is a big filthy guitar riff. It's sick. Like, I was listening to it the other day, I'm like, that's just filthy. It's awesome. Was that intentional? You're like, yeah, let's just put this fierce guitar lick in there.
You know, we just wanted to do something different, and not not be so perfect and like that. We know that sometimes, you know, having shit that's just sort of edgy is, I mean, that's everything realistic. And in hip hop at that time, you had to be distinct, so you had to take chances on your sound. And Muggs took some great chances, and you know, we were able to do some things that a lot of people didn't think we were capable of, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've had a pretty absurd, it's rare to be this successful for this long. It's cool. Good on you. That's sick. I'm glad you did.
I'm appreciative every day, because, you know, as it related to hip hop, when we were first coming, you know, most groups lasted maybe, if you're lucky, 3 albums.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and then you were done. And most 2.
Yeah.
And for the very unfortunate one, you know, but people didn't think we were going to get out the gate. And then we got out the gate, and we had success, and then they thought we couldn't hold it. And so then Black Sunday comes out, and then they're like, well, they're going to be done on their 3rd album. The 3rd album comes, and we're fucking rolling hard without support from Sony as it was the previous 2 albums. And we still managed to do really well. And they're like, well, it's just a matter of time.
Yes, bitch, still going, not stopping anytime soon. New music coming out next month.
That's right. And all that to say is that, you know, if you're an artist out there and people are labeling you this or that, or saying that you'll never make it, or when you make it that you'll be done quick, you know, hey, it's all about the work you put in, and in your mindset, your belief in yourself, and the ones that are around you helping you to do this shit. You know, don't fall into any of that negativity, because it is what you make it. Yeah,
100%. Well, okay. Who would be your musical Mount Rushmore if you could, like, be real, like, carved into the side of the stone? We're gonna build one day a museum for all of these, because it's always interesting. Yeah, like if you like Be Real's one, it'd be pretty sick.
It would be too fucking big.
You can have 4 faces. That's all you get. You get 4 faces. You got to pick a head. You got to pick one of the Beatles. Yeah.
Okay, one of the Beatles. Okay, I'll go with McCartney's head, even though it should be Lennon. I'm gonna go with McCartney because he's such a dope songwriter. Yeah. Chuck D, Bob Marley, Ozzy Osbourne, and Jimmy Page.
Ooh, there's more. That's solid, dude. No, that's solid. That's a sick one. And I'm a question. 5 songs that changed your life. Oh, I drop this on people at the end, and then I feel bad because I'm like, but it's always interesting what bubbles to the surface when you do it off the cuff.
again, Kings of Rock.
Yeah.
That let's see what else. What else? Jesus, that's a fucking good one. Don't Believe the Hype by Public Enemy. Any Beatles song, really. Yep. But if I had to pick one, Revolution, right? Okay. Bob Marley, Rastaman Vibration.
Yeah.
And how many is that? That's
dude,
was that 4?
I think that's 4.
I need one.
Yeah.
And let me see. Life changing. Yeah. I'm gonna say what was the first Ozzy Osbourne song I heard? I think Crazy Train.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, but I figured that's probably the fucking song.
Yeah, it was Crazy Train.
Okay, I have to ask you as well. So Back in Black is an interesting name for a record. Obviously, I'm Australian, so AC/DC is a big deal. And Back in Black is a particularly important album because Bon Scott died. The frontman died. The only reason, this is my theory, the only reason that Brian Johnson was ever accepted after losing someone like Bon Scott was the fact that his first shit was Back in Black. And like, it's one of the most important, like you try and top that. How are you you can't like, so tell us about that because I'm curious.
I mean, Back in Black is their iconic album. I mean, that's the shit everybody loves. You can go to that album. There is not one bad fucking song on there. I mean, me and my cousin used to fucking rock that album. Like, I mean, we wore out the cassette tape. I mean, because this is when we had cassette tapes, right? Yeah. AC/DC meant, you know, they were one of my favorite bands at that time as a kid. Yeah. And that album was everything. So when it came time to do this album, it was sort of like, it was a double meaning, I guess. Yeah. If I could say it that way, is, you know, like a tribute to, you know, one of my favorite bands by calling it Back in Black. And also, you know, it was produced by Black Milk. So we thought Cypress Hill, Back in Black.
I see what you did there. I was like, oh, they're doing an AC/DC covers record. Oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I want to hear Cypress Hill.
That would have been awesome to do that, because I could get my voice on Brian Johnson's range.
Oh my God, if you do some sort of B-side, please, for the fans everywhere, I would love to hear you guys cover AC/DC. That would be so sick.
What's crazy is that there when we do Rock Superstar, sometimes we mix it up, right? Yeah. We'll do like a mashup version of Rock Superstar. Mm-hmm. And there was times that we mixed it up with Back in Black, where we would do you know, we would do the song. Yeah, and it works because we would use the Back in Black music in our third verse. We'd totally flip the song and we would rock it. We'd rock the Rock Superstar verse over the Back in Black instrumental, and people were nuts for that shit. So I would imagine next time we're out in Australia, we're probably going to rock it that way.
You better come soon. Like, when are you guys coming back? We haven't had any American rock and roll for like years. Come on, like we need some love, dude.
You know, I believe there's plans, and you know, oddly enough, before Prophets of Rage broke up, we were planning on getting out there to do some stuff. So, but I know that Cypress Hill is definitely in the works of trying to figure out dates down there. So we'll be back out.
Yeah, you got a record to hustle. That's what's up.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been
It's
been freaking awesome. It's I'm a huge fan from forever. I mean, not like forever. And you know what I mean. I'm a huge fan. So thank you for joining us. You're the first hip hop artist we've had on the Revolver Fan First podcast. So this is significant, and you know, it's it's great. Like I'm just gushing now. Thanks for joining us. Be Real.
Thanks for having me.
To go deep into your story. Thanks everyone for watching. It's Be Real, Cypress Hill. I got a new album next month called Back in Black. It's not AC/DC covers, but I'm pretty sure it'll be pretty sick. So Bye.